We're back. It's another episode of Havlicek Stole the Pod. I am your host, Alex Goldberg. With me, as always, is Dr. Justin Quinn and Daniel Donabedian. And we've got a special guest, as always, or at least as most of the time, joining us from the Ringer. It's Howard Beck. How you doing, Howard? What up, Beck? Et cetera, et cetera.
Gentlemen, great to see you again. It's been a while. Thanks for having me back.
Always a pleasure. JQ, how are you doing today?
Well, no one is shooting at me, despite what you might be reading in the newspapers. I am several hours away from the nearest blockade and a couple of states away from the craziness. So if y'all are worried about me in that regard, don't. I'm pretty good.
The notorious Dr. Justin Quinn at it again. Daniel, what's going on with you?
I'm doing pretty well. I'm in sunny California. I feel bad for the rest of my family because they're in blizzard heaven in New England. But I'll be going back there pretty soon anyways.
Enjoy sunny California while you can. Reporting live from Brooklyn, New York, where we are still absolutely covered in snow. But at least the roads are plowed and maybe it'll melt at some point. We'll see. Anyway, so we got a lot to cover, and Howard is going to help us break down a bunch of different things regarding the Boston Celtics, where they stand this season, and the potential oncoming return of superstar Jayson Tatum. We're going to jump right into the news. Let's start with the last three games that Boston has played since we recorded. All wins for the Green Team. It's a 121 to 110 victory over the Golden State Warriors in Golden State. Jaylen Brown had a triple-double with 23, 15, and 13. Peyton Pritchard had a very nice game, 26 points on 10 of 18 shooting. Steph Curry was not in the lineup for the Golden State Warriors, but Kristaps Porzingis was. He made his Golden State Warriors debut, and it was very chummy between him, Derek White, and the other Celtics. And Jaylen Brown had plenty of love for him and Al Horford in his post-game interview after the Celtics trounced the Warriors. Then they moved on to the Los Angeles Lakers. Pat Riley's retirement honoring night ended with a big fat L in front of the Laker legends. Jaylen Brown had another great game, 32, 8, and 9. His shooting was not so great, as it was 10 for 28, but Peyton Pritchard picked up the slack with 30 points, 4 rebounds, and 8 assists on 10 of 12 shooting. And the D brought it, particularly off the bench. Hugo Gonzalez, Jordan Walsh, they were all over this game, along with Nimi Keita. Marcus Smart, our beloved former Celtic, shot 0 for 7. And the Lakers are in an interesting place right now. LeBron James is still got a frenemy-ish relationship with Jaylen Brown. But in this case, Jaylen got the better of LeBron, and the Celtics absconded with a win. After that, they headed to Phoenix, where last night they put the clamps on the Suns, 97 to 81 victory. Jaylen Brown did not play in that game, but the Celtics went on a monster 55 to 11 run in the third quarter. Derek White had a great game, 22, 8, and 8. Nimi Keita was a monster, plus 29 on the box score. The Celtics shot only 28% from deep, and they still won this game pretty easily. That was probably helped by the fact that Devin Booker and Dylan Brooks did not play for Phoenix. So let's break down these three games. Howard, where do you want to start? What have you seen from these three games or this kind of stretch generally?
Can I just completely deviate from the Celtics part of this and just say how rude it was for them to ruin Pat Riley's big statue unveiling?
I was quite pleased by that.
Maybe that's on the Lakers. Maybe that's on the Lakers for scheduling a rivalry game against a team. Obviously, neither the Lakers nor anybody else across the league probably thought this would be what the Celtics would look like at this stage of the season or this season at all. But yeah, I guess bad idea on their part. But I thought that was striking, considering all that comes to mind when you think about Riley and James Worthy was there, Magic, Kareem, AC Green, Rambis. The only other thing the Celtics could have done to humiliate them that night would be to have Kevin McHale come in and knock Rambis on his ass again or something. So,
that would have been a good pickup.
Other than that, look, I didn't see every minute of all three of those games. So I would just say Zach, my colleague, has lately used just the term very professional to describe who the Celtics are, their identity, and like that they're just continue to be a very professional team that, whether it's the Warriors being undermanned or the Suns undermanned or the Lakers being whatever it is the Lakers are right now, the Celtics just continue to professionally put away teams and impressive road wins and continue to just keep reinforcing this but reinforcing this image of them as being far exceeding expectations this season. Apparently not a gap year. We'll get to the Tatum of it all soon, but just continue to be incredibly impressed by the way they have carried themselves and conducted themselves throughout the season.
Daniel, Justin, anything to add about this stretch?
I would just add about the Lakers scheduling. They might need to work on it a bit because I believe they lost the game where LeBron got the all-time scoring record. They lost the statue night. I think they lost another statue night too, but I can't remember which one.
Oh man!
Yeah, I was there. I was there live and just watching Peyton Pritchard cook it was crazy. It was just silent in there, and you could hear the Celtics fans later. But in terms of the whole stretch, I'll just say the defense and the crashing has really stood out to me. I know it's a little cliche to talk about those things in effort, but it's been pretty apparent for me. Like, even on nights when Jaylen Brown's not that good, when Jaylen Brown doesn't play, when somebody else is having an off night, they're just getting such an advantage on the boards against teams like Phoenix. And then effort-wise, I don't know if you guys saw the play where Ugo leaks out for a free layup after Luka was kind of on the ground still talking to the refs. Like, little things like that have kind of added up for the Celtics. And I think another test will be tonight against the Nuggets. But Joe Mazzulla has them ready to go every game, it feels like.
JQ, anything to add here?
Not really. I'm curious to see how, particularly with Denver being on the schedule tonight, whether or not the 40-20 rule comes into play. I think it might actually be the case that they end up beating the Nuggets and then dropping a game to the Brooklyn Nets. Again,
that would be the most Celtics thing possible, is to get to 39-19 and then go home riding high on a 4-game road winning streak and drop one to this stupid Nets team. Yeah, I could absolutely see that happening. You mentioned the defense, Daniel. The Boston Celtics now have a top 7 defense in the NBA per net rating to go with their number 2 rated offense, grading them out at number 2 net overall in a virtual deadlock with the Detroit Pistons. So we've mentioned this 40-20 rule. Of course, this is the famous Phil Jackson, 40 wins before 20 losses equals you are a contender. And it's held pretty strong. Basically, what I think Bill Simmons mentioned, 90% of title-winning teams in basically the modern era of basketball fit this criteria since the season went to 82 games. That, with a couple of exceptions, the 40-20 thing holds pretty strong. The Celtics are on the precipice of doing that. It's possible they will. It's possible they won't. Their stats, their recent record, these all, at least for the most part, seem to indicate a team that is a legitimate title contender. Howard, we're going to flip it to you. Do you see a title contender here? And does the 40-20 thing matter, or is the context different with regard to Jayson Tatum and his absence and potential looming return?
Listen, I think when you get this deep into the season, we can't do small sample size. We can't do strength of schedule. We can't chalk things up to any just vagaries of micro trends. Like, we've got enough of the season behind us that you can look at where the Celtics are and the stats that you just mentioned, their offensive rating, their defensive rating, their net rating, any other versions of it that you want to look at, and safely conclude they're a contender pre-Tatum. I don't see any other way to interpret this. And if anybody wants to look at it and punch holes by saying, well, this version of the Celtics hasn't been there, or sure, Jaylen Brown was Finals MVP and Conference Finals MVP a couple of years back, but Tatum was there for all of that, and yeah, that's a certainly fair observation. like every season has its own construction. And when you're looking at the Eastern Conference in particular, like when we talk about like who's a contender and can be legitimately placed in that category, it's not always can you win the championship. It's kind of more like can you get there? Can you be a Final Four team? Just nothing I've seen this season at all from the Celtics or from anybody else in the East that suggests that we could rule the Celtics out of the Eastern Conference Finals. That would be preposterous. The Knicks are up and down and all over the map, not as reliable as one would expect given what they have on paper. The Cavaliers, obviously just made a seismic change in trading for James Harden a couple weeks ago. Now he's got a broken finger, which it seems like he's going to play through. But the Cavs, I don't think anybody has a lot of confidence in. And then there's the Pistons, who, of course, have been atop the East for pretty much the entire season. And I think are legitimately, I know some people are hesitating to call them the favorites, but I think they've earned that title. They're the number one seed and probably will be the number one seed going into the playoffs. That makes them the favorites to me. Lack of playoff experience we can talk about, or lack of a playoff series victory yet by the Pistons, sure, fine. But there's nobody in the Eastern Conference that has an airtight case, not even close. And it's probably one of those four teams. And if you told me that any two of them were in the conference finals, I'd believe you. And yeah, the Celtics are right there. Whether the Celtics or any of those other teams can actually beat the Thunder or the Spurs or the Nuggets is a different question. But the Celtics are a contender.
Yeah. No, that makes sense. Obviously, going to be a big game tonight in Denver, and a potential measuring stick game for whether Boston does indeed stack up with some of those Western Conference contenders. Denver has played Boston really, really well these past few years. It's been a lot of very close, challenging, contested games. So we'll be watching that. Will be very interesting. You mentioned the Knicks and the Cavs. They are effectively tied. They're not effectively tied. They're actually tied. Their record is the exact same. At the 3 and 4 spots in the Eastern Conference, respectively. Of course, the Pistons are still atop, and barring something, pretty surprising, you have to imagine the Pistons are going to get the 1 seed at this point. It would take a pretty significant collapse. But we will keep tabs, as always, here on Havlicek Stole the Pod as far as the Celtics and whether they are contenders or not. The 40-20 thing would be cool. They would be, I think Boston is one of only 4 teams that can now possibly get there. The Thunder, Spurs, and Pistons have already gotten there, and everybody else has been eliminated from the 40-20 rule contention, except for Boston, who would need to win both of their next 2 games in order to qualify. In other vaguely Celtics-related news, we should mention former Celtic Anthony Simons re-aggravated his left wrist fracture. According to the Chicago Bulls, this was an injury he sustained in training camp during Boston. It did not seem to affect his play in Boston really at all, as he had a very good season and was a legitimate 6th Man of the Year contender prior to being traded. Do we buy that Anthony Simons has an actually re-aggravated wrist injury that would prevent him from playing, or are the Bulls just kind of,
I don't know about prevent him? Yeah, maybe they are. I'm just guessing. It's to me, like in my mind, it's like if you've ever fallen down on your wrist trying to break your fall playing, like that can really hurt. And if you get a really big bone bruise from that, that can linger for a long time. And you should not play with it, but you can.
Any thoughts on the Anthony Simons injury? I will say I glanced a little bit at the Bulls game last night, and holy smokes, that was a pretty abominable display of basketball against the Charlotte Hornets.
Yeah.
Anything else to add here, folks?
I'll just say this. We are all absolutely justified in looking askew at every injury report by every bottom 10 team for the rest of the season. We know what they're all doing. Like, maybe it's legit, maybe it's not. But like when Yusuf Nurkic is like shut down for the season to have like nose surgery, deviated septum. Like I'm sorry, I'm no expert on deviated septums, but like, I mean, come on, man. Like, and today I think like now they're saying like Markkanen got hurt in practice. Like,
hip and ankle. Yeah.
I mean, we don't know what's fact or fiction anymore. We'll let the NBA try to sort it out. They can, send a team of medical investigators if they need to. But we are absolutely justified in being just a little skeptical of everything from all the teams that are clearly trying to position for the lottery.
They sure are, and I think you hit the nail on the head there as far as skepticism regarding injury reports. We'll see what the Brooklyn Nets have for Boston when they return to the TD Garden. Speaking of returns to the TD Garden, Jaylen Brown was not in the TD Garden recently. This is an awful segue. I'm just butchering this. Holy smokes. That being said, Jaylen Brown, it should be mentioned, is considering legal action against the, let's see, what was the fancy neighborhood? Beverly Hills.
Beverly Hills.
Yeah, that one. There was, of course, his All-Star Weekend pop-up event, which was shut down by the Beverly Hills Police Department. And Jaylen Brown is considering his options, as he has every right to. We'll see where that actually goes. I kind of get the sense maybe it's just the latent lawyer in me that I don't think this case is going to go all that far, but we will see. I think there's a nice cushy settlement that could be awarded to clear this up. Let's put it that way. All right, I think that's it for the news. Is there anything else that we should talk about news-wise, or should we keep this thing moving and get into the meat of this pod?
I think we're good.
All right, your silence is justified. Let's get into it. So Howard, you're here and you know what time it is. It's the Steal. You get to take over the pod. You get to talk about whatever you want. It can be Celtics related, basketball related, podcast life, Ringer related, Bill Simmons related. Like, you can take this where you want it. You get the floor. What do you want to talk about for the next chunk of this pod?
I had a couple of different off the wall ideas here. So let's see how this one goes. And if we're not interested, I'll jump to the next one. This is a Celtics pod. You are all Celtics fans. And one of the things I've been pondering for the last several weeks, actually since the beginning of the season, is how your favorite team's favorite rival is heading for a really important, potentially just crazy summer. Is LeBron staying or going? Is Austin Reeves staying or going? Is the front office, for that matter? They have a new team president, Lon Rosen, who just affirmed yesterday that Rob Pelinka is safe. But like, I've been around this league a long time. Those words don't mean much from any team, anytime. It's a new ownership group with now a new team president for the first time in decades. And so I was thinking, like, what do Celtics fans think about the Lakers' big summer? Like, how do you, like, are you rooting for anything in particular here? Are you just like rooting for mayhem? Do you want LeBron to return because you think that it might actually be bad for them? I don't know. Like, I obviously, you guys know, like, I spent 7 years of the beginning of my NBA writing career covering the Lakers during the Shaq and Kobe era. I've been in New York for 20 something years now, but like, as you guys know, much to the chagrin of everybody in every other market, we in the media and the country tend to obsess about the Lakers, but it is a legitimately big offseason. And, you know, it's their first big offseason where it's like, how do we retool around Luka? I'm fascinated by all of that. I just wondered if, like, is the greater, like, Celtic fandom looking at this and, you know, interpreting it a certain way, rooting for any particular outcome here.
I'll jump in on this one. Yeah, just because I'm probably the only person on this podcast besides you who's old enough to remember the 80s battles. Not very well. I was pretty young. But I remember them, and they were formative in forming my basketball allegiances, if you will. The more recent iteration of that in the 2008 title onward, to me, it just, the NBA is never better than when those two teams are going at it, preferably in the finals. And I'm probably an outlier in this. I want the Lakers to be a title contender, a legitimate title contender. At the same time, the Celtics are, right? And it's shaping up that way. However, I am nervous because one of the most important things the Celtics have had historically is almost continually, there is a large chunk, we will not talk about, of competent front office leadership that the Lakers look poised to have now. We don't necessarily know anything specifically about the new hire you just mentioned or what they're going to do or anything like that, but we saw what they did with the Dodgers in a different sport. And that makes me concerned that the title odds could careen back in the other direction fairly rapidly if they have the same kind of success. So that's my thoughts.
I will come in here as the red hot mega homer take in saying that I am thrilled that the Lakers are currently in a state of chaos and dysfunction. Now, I know, of course, that they will wriggle their way out of it because they always do, because that's just how it works with the Lakers. The ineptitude is rewarded with superstar players just plopping into their lap. As one does if you are a Los Angeles Lakers. So I have a dear friend here in Brooklyn who is a Lakers fan, and we're ribbing each other about this constantly. So I'm sure they will ultimately be fine, but they do have a pretty challenging offseason ahead, to your point. To me, the biggest thing for the Lakers this offseason is the question of what to do with Austin Reeves. Because Austin Reeves had a super hot start to the season where he was playing at what I think a lot of people legitimately thought could be a borderline all-star level. That's a player who could potentially make a lot of money in the open market and will get real offers this offseason. And of course, because the Lakers did not give him a contract extension in restricted free agency, he is available. He can just go somewhere. And it will be up to the Lakers to make their case both financially and, in terms of situation, as far as what they're willing to do to keep him. Now, the Lakers have, of course, been linked to every superstar trade imaginable because they're the Lakers and they will always be linked to that. It strikes me as being a pretty hard needle to thread of keeping Austin Reeves and also adding that superstar as well. You have to think if they're going for a Giannis or something like that, that a big part of whatever that package looks like would probably be Austin Reeves via a sign and trade or something of that nature. If sign and trades are even possible in the new CBA, which it kind of seems like they're not, but we'll see there. As far as the LeBron question is concerned, it seems to me that the Lakers have at least pretty publicly now come out and said they're moving on Luka's timeline. So I think, honestly, the decision of whether to return to the Lakers is now mostly in LeBron's court. I imagine the Lakers will make him a respectable but not particularly massive offer, at least from a contract standpoint, knowing that Luka is going to be their mega max player going forward, and they're probably going to want to use their cap space to improve what I think we saw the other day is a pretty threadbare roster, if we're being honest, as far as talent is concerned. So I think the ball is in LeBron's court as to whether he wants to stay on the Lakers. The sense that I've gotten is that I don't know that LeBron would necessarily be enthused to return with the current environment being what it was. Now, what that means for his future, hard to say. Obviously, the Knicks, the Cavs, the Warriors, they have all been linked to LeBron in one form or another. And I'm sure everybody's just begging to gear up for one last ride on the LeBron free agency roller coaster. But I think the Lakers' priorities this offseason pretty much have to be step one, figure out what you're doing with Austin Reeves. Step two, figure out what's happening with the rest of the roster after you figure that out. For better or worse, this is Luka's team now. It's going to be Luka's team going forward, and they're going to orient all of their decision-making around that. I, for one, am fine with this because I've seen plenty of Luka Doncic these past few years, and I have some questions about his overall game. Let's just put it that way. But Daniel, I'm going to swing it to you.
Yeah, I think you guys have covered it pretty well, but I'll just say I think Celtics fans should maybe want to see Rob Pelinka stay. Honestly, besides lucking into Luka, I don't think he's done that great of a job as late. Alex is kind of referencing it, the threadbare roster. Like, they don't really look like a contender. Their record is solid. I mean, they've stayed afloat.
They put together weird teams around LeBron too. I mean, like there's just a formula for doing it, and they have not followed it.
Yeah, and
I just can't. I can't get over the whole winning record negative point differential thing. That's crazy to me. But
I forgot about that too. But they just looked not even up to the Celtics level in the last game, which is crazy to say since they don't even have Tatum active. And I know we'll get into that more. But and I think Celtics fans are just enjoying this LeBron dysfunction that's come from this year, whether it's like all these reports of him beefing with Jeannie Buss and all of that. So maybe they'd want him to stay another year to see that happen, and maybe a reunion tour goes south. But I'd honestly be surprised if he leaves LA. It's there or Cleveland, but I'd still be surprised if he leaves.
The Cleveland thing is so... I don't know why they would do that, given that they just took a big Harden swing, but you never know with Cleveland. I'll be really interested. What I'm really interested is to hear what my friends, who is a Lakers fan, what his reaction is to this section of the pod, because I think that's going to be a fun conversation. Yeah, I don't know. We'll see. Howard, do you have any additional thoughts on the Lakers and what they should or would or could do?
Just that, so some gut stuff, right? My gut says LeBron is done, that he's either retiring or he's playing somewhere else. It doesn't feel like it doesn't make any sense for him to be back with them next season. We like that statement from Rich Paul from back in, June 30th, July 1st, whatever, has never faded. In my mind, it's faded obviously because it was 1,000 Laker things ago, 1,000 NBA dramas ago, but they're clearly on Luka's timeline, as they should be, as they have to be, and LeBron can see that. And even just like the miscue in last night's game at the end there of Luka holding the ball too, just like they don't really feel all that tied together as a team. They've got a bad negative differential with their big three out there. Like all this just feels like they're just marking time until they get to reformat around Luka. And I think I frankly think they've taken their time too much with that. And granted, there are some built-in obstacles, including LeBron's salary, but among other things, they've not done a great job of doing this on the fly. Like you just burned a season and a half of Luka because they're not a contender right now, and they're not going to be this season. So then it's, how much do you pay Austin Reeves? Is Austin Reeves demanding the max? Because if I'm his agent, I'm demanding the max. Is Austin Reeves actually a max player? Maybe not, but he might get it anyway because that's how, markets work and supply and demand work. And so if it's not the Lakers, it may be somebody else. And maybe he wants to get a leading role somewhere else. Maybe he doesn't want to be Luka's wingman. Who knows? But if you do lock him up to somewhere near the max or at the max, he damn well better be a top 20 player for the foreseeable future, because you cannot, generally speaking, in this league, you're not winning titles unless you've got, a great second star next to your superstar. And if he's not that guy and you tie up that money in him in this era with the second apron, good luck building a roster. And good luck anyway, because once you've got those two locked up, I haven't done the math recently, but you just don't have a lot of wiggle room to build out a really tight starting five and a 7, 8, 9-man rotation. It's hard. And to the point of what a couple of you already mentioned, like the rotation as it stands now is, pretty uninspiring. So they have a shit ton of work to do, which is why I bring it up. And I think it's been almost underplayed to this point, but it's looming. And so anyway, as I was kicking around what we could discuss in this portion of the pod, and I thought, who outside of Laker fandom has a more vested interest than Celtic fandom? So anyway, appreciate everybody's thoughts on that.
Of course. Well, we're happy to offer thoughts on this topic anytime. And, speaking of Lakers fans, Jayson Tatum is coming back to the Boston Celtics, it would appear.
Well done. Well done.
I thought that was okay. Anyway.
Kobe fans. Don't get killed.
Yeah,
we're making that distinction now.
I see. Yeah. So we got to break down the return of Jayson Tatum, and that's what we have you here for, Howard. So Shams is reporting that Jayson Tatum is now doing 5-on-5 scrimmages with the team. He is, by all accounts, it sounds like fully operational physically, and it is now mentally, when does he feel ready to return? We're pretty much there. I think we can safely say that at this point, based on all the available reporting. So with that in mind, a lot of stuff has been rumored about early March. We're seeing Sixers and Spurs games getting flexed into national spotlight time. And maybe that's just because the Celtics are playing well. But more and more, it seems an awful lot like Jayson Tatum is going to come back and play basketball for the Celtics this year. And he's potentially going to do so imminently within the next couple of weeks. We have you on here, Howard, to break down what we know, what we think, and what we expect as far as his return. First off, there's been a lot of buzz generated by this docuseries produced by Brett Hampton, friend of Jayson Tatum and friend of Boston sports generally. Have you seen any of the potential docuseries from NBC? Is this on your radar at all?
They haven't sent anything over. Like sometimes they'll send screeners to the media, and I don't either. If maybe I've missed it, but I didn't see it. And so when I saw the rundown for the show, I was like, oh, maybe I'll try to watch one today. And I went on Peacock Plus.
Okay, good.
Can't
find it either. Okay, good.
It's just YouTube.
Yeah. No,
I'm in Mexico, so I figured that might be my problem. But
yeah, good job, everybody.
Yeah.
So no, I haven't seen it.
Well, maybe we'll get there, YouTube or otherwise.
Yes.
So let's get into the actual nitty gritty here, though. So first off, again, Shams is saying he's doing 5-on-5 scrimmages with the team. That's you don't do that unless you're pretty much all the way there, is my understanding.
Yeah.
And yet the Celtics and Joe Mazzulla in particular have really played this close to the vest. They have not leaked a lot of information. They have not offered a specific return date. Howard, why do you think it is that they've been so kind of coy about this?
Because that's what NBA teams do these days. They're like obnoxiously secretive. Every NBA team acts like they're guarding fucking like national security secrets, and they're the Pentagon. Like, chill out, guys. It's just basketball. I think that to be fair, you're trying in these situations not to raise expectations, right? What if Jayson Tatum just decides, you know what, I just don't feel it. And if you've conveyed that there's a return date or it's imminent or whatever, and then he decides not to, then you've got an issue on your hands. So maybe it's a little bit of that. My guess is that he is coming back. I've felt that for quite a while now. They know he's coming back, and they just want to play coy, partially just because that's what teams do, and partially because it generates its own momentum, right? Like it becomes a thing. Oh, like the fans are already talking about it, buzzing about it anyway. But if you say it's imminent, or if you say he's definitely coming back, and we're just trying to figure out a date, like it just puts all this other pressure on it. Every day becomes questions about how much closer is he? Those questions are there anyway, by the way. And even perfectly fair, reasonable, understandable, and should be expected questions like, hey, Joe, you said he was at practice, but did he actually practice? Elicits the fucking 1,000-yard stare from Mazzulla the other day, which, like, I know Mazzulla is just kind of a weirdo and he does this, but like,
yeah,
that was just bizarre. I mean, and I know, look, on the list of like strange Mazzulla responses and non-responses, it's probably not even in the top 10, but like that was just a normal question. You said he was there. Did he practice? And it's just whatever. Every team is a little weird. The Celtics on this one are particularly weird. And I think there's this impulse like we have to protect our players from God knows what. But I think it's that. Nobody wants to say the wrong thing, do the wrong thing.
Yeah, I'll just say,
shout out to Bobby Manning for asking that question. Sorry. Anyway, go ahead, Dave.
No, I was just going to say about Bobby. It was after the post game, I think, because I was there. I was there for the stare too. But Joe went up to him and like hugged him. I'm not sure what their conversation was exactly, but I think it was probably something Joe, like you know how it goes. Like this is just how it is. Like this is how I have to be.
Yeah,
so that happened. But regardless of that, I think we kind of saw a preview of this last year-ish with the Porzingis comeback, and how the Celtics themselves were the ones who like announced that on Twitter. This wasn't like some scoop. This wasn't Shams. So
they love that. Yeah, that's how they roll.
Exactly. So I think we're just seeing that again, where the Celtics are going to keep it close to the vest, and they're going to do it on their own terms rather than giving it up to somebody else. So I'm not surprised by this rollout. And like you guys said, it helps with the momentum that's always building online. Like it's been crazy. This has been talked about every day for the last few months, it feels like.
Yeah, I think it's fair to say that Celtics fans are pretty buzzing. You're absolutely right. And expectations are now raised whether the Celtics want to keep it under wraps or not. Like just the reporting on this, the breathless reporting on it really has made it as so. Speaking of expectations, so let's get into the world in which the increasingly likely world in which Jayson Tatum is going to be playing basketball for this team sooner rather than later. Jen, just as a recap, Celtics are the number 2 seed in the Eastern Conference. They've been rolling lately. Their top 7 defense, the top 2 offense. Things are going very, very well. This team's firing on all cylinders. So what exactly are you supposed to do when a top 5 or 7-ish, whatever you want to call it, all NBA guy comes back to a team that's playing as well as it is right now in Boston? First off, we'll start with Tatum's own expectations. What should we expect from Jayson Tatum coming back after this Achilles injury, sometime in the next couple of weeks?
Yeah. You said it, so the expectations are already there, and it's so enticing if you're a Celtics fan or if you're just a basketball fan to think like, oh my God, they're this good without him. What could they be with him? And the temptation is to think that, he comes back and he's just himself. But like an Achilles injury is one of the tougher ones to come back from and get back to yourself, right? So the what to expect part, impossible to say, other than I think we should not expect Jayson Tatum to be 100%. And I want to be careful here. When I say 100%, I mean he'll be 100% healthy, right? The doctors will not clear him. I don't think any NBA team in this era of the NBA is going to clear a guy unless they're absolutely positively confident that the guy can come back without any danger of re-injuring or injuring something else by favoring the leg, any of that kind of stuff, right? So he'll be 100% ready to go. Whether he's 100% of himself, the most effective and most explosive, most athletic version of himself, that's the question, right? And I think we should expect it's going to be less than that. I don't know how much less than 100%, but it will probably be less. The good news is that they have another number one. This is as we've discovered, or maybe we didn't discover. Maybe you all knew it all along. But whether it was Jaylen Brown getting Finals MVP or whether it's Jaylen Brown carrying the team this year without Jayson Tatum and also without Porzingis, Horford, Kornet, Jrue Holiday, like that again. Nobody, and I know some people internally at the Celtics absolutely insist we knew what we had. We knew we had some guys who were going to bust their asses and play hard and give us a chance to be this good. I mean, this is exceeding expectations by any stretch, though. And so the good news for Tatum and for the Celtics is Jaylen Brown is a number one. He's not he's not a Robin to Batman. Whatever. Jaylen Brown's fucking number one. We'll get to the part about how Tatum and Brown reintegrate with each other, but Tatum has the luxury now of coming back to a team where he does not have to be the superhero. He doesn't have to be his old self right off the bat. He can work toward it. That's a great luxury. And hopefully, for himself, ego-wise and everything else, he can look at it that way. Not I need to go back to being who I was, but more of Jaylen can carry us at such a high level that I can just pick my spots. Not everything is on my shoulders. That's a luxury, and hopefully he sees it that way. So there's that. And then I'll just, throw this one last thing. So hopefully you guys follow InStreetClothes.com, Jeff Stotts.
Yep.
He wrote about this when Tatum first went down, and he's re-upped it on his website, InStreetClothes.com recently. And so 2014 study examining Achilles tendon tears in the NBA revealed a return to play rate at nearly 80%. And I think that means 80% do return. Only 40%, though, of the 9 players classified as all-star level talent returned to their highest playing level. Now, a lot of that is they did this later in their careers or whatever. Tatum is still like squarely in his prime. I would expect, especially with modern medicine and looking at the Kevin Durant example, and Durant was older when he did it, I think Tatum's got to, talking out of my ass without a medical degree, or I'm not even an athletic trainer like Jeff Stotts. I would say that seems like that's a pretty good case for being able to get pretty close to 100%, if not 100%. But it's probably not this season, right? Because it's only been 10 months. So I think people should hold their expectations down for what he could be. But again, 80, 90, whatever percent of Jayson Tatum coming back to a Celtics team that's already at, somewhere in the top 4 or 5 teams in the NBA is an incredible luxury and should be a boost regardless of how Tatum can play when he gets back.
Yeah. I am kind of intrigued because typically when players come back, particularly if they're, significant parts of a team's architecture, there is a little bit of a feel it out period where they kind of try and, get that player up to speed or, start to kind of work on their conditioning. And it often does not look all that pretty, right? It's a little clunky. Sure. It results in, some of the kind of kinks having to be worked out on the floor, which I think makes sense and is pretty common for players returning from injury. But given the Celtics' momentum and how well they have been playing, and the fact that the Eastern Conference standings, at least in the top four, are pretty tight, I do kind of wonder about, whether the kinks of trying to bring Jayson Tatum back and work those out, how much will that affect what the team has already developed on the court? We'll kind of go more into this in detail, but I guess I'm curious, just from a 500-foot view, do you anticipate any situation where like the Celtics hot play of late, maybe kind of starts to regress or kind of, stumble as they try and reintegrate such an important player?
One of the reasons this story is so fascinating and Tatum's return is so fascinating is because I don't think there's really any precedent for this. Yes, other guys have had Achilles injuries and come back. Other superstars have had Achilles injuries and come back. Other teams have had stars be injured and come back at some point in the season. But this exact framework, your best player, a top five, as you say, top 5 to 7, wherever you want to put him, but a perennial MVP candidate, blows out his Achilles, comes back ahead of schedule, but late in the season. Meanwhile, your number 2 star has become a certified number 1, and your record is legitimately placing you in the contender conversation, and you're reintegrating your previous number 1 with like 25 games to go. There's no version of this. There's no precedent for this. There's no analog. Yeah. There's nothing we can compare this to. And so it comes down to just the specifics of this team and these personalities. How much is Tatum willing to just kind of find his way in? How much is Jaylen Brown willing to, going to empower him to do it? How much patience can Joe Mazzulla have in the context of a given game or a given quarter if it looks like Tatum just doesn't have it? How do you manage that? Because you don't want to deflate him by yanking him if he goes, 0 for 5 over a 10-minute stretch or something. You know what I mean? Like there's a lot of this. This will be less about basketball than it will be about personalities and psychology and ego and expectations and all these other things. And that part is what's so fascinating, because in one sense, the stakes are low. Everybody else thought this was going to be a gap year. In one sense, the stakes are high. You are a legit contender right now, and you don't want to mess that up. Tatum should only enhance that, not disrupt it. But you don't just plug back in a guy who's been a perennial All-NBA player without there being some adjustment, right? So that's a delicate balance. I think like Joe Mazzulla's got a lot on his plate in managing all of this. And I don't mean to say that in any kind of like skeptical way. I just mean like this is a legitimate challenge. And I would expect it's going to go perfectly well. I also think that Tatum coming back to a team that, while there's been a lot of change, the fundamental rotation guys are still the same, right? He and Jaylen Brown have been figuring out their partnership for years already and have been to 2 finals and won a championship. Peyton Pritchard has been there for years already. Derek White's been there for years already. And critically, those are also the guys with the ball in their hands the most in Tatum's absence. But they've all also played off of him before. And he can play off the ball. Like all these guys have the ability to be on and off ball, and I think already have a feel for each other. So it's not like you have to establish new chemistry. Yeah, there's some other new figures in the mix here, and some guys who were fringe players who are now more everyday guys. But I think from Mazzulla to Brown to White to Pritchard to, this is a familiar environment. I think it should go just fine, provided Tatum can actually play at a certain level, and we won't know that till we see him on the court.
The Vucevic aspect, bringing back the pick and pop option for them, I think is going to be pretty familiar to him as well, even if it's a totally different face doing it. But I am really curious to see like how they delegate, like who is bringing the ball up every possession. Is it going to still be Jaylen and to a lesser extent Peyton and Derek, or is he going to kind of try to jump back into that role? And how is that going to go with everything else they've been doing?
Yeah, as well, considering how kind of malleable Jayson Tatum has been, like his real strength as a superstar player is that he has been a guy who just kind of does whatever is asked of him. I think back to the 2024 playoffs where Tatum, had to alternate between being number one option go-to ball handler scoring threat to rebounder to guarding centers to playing off ball. And he just kind of did everything during their finals run and eventual title run. And so one of the luxuries of having Jayson Tatum is that he is an extremely versatile player. And arguably that's the greatest strength that he brings to basketball, is that he just kind of is able to do everything. So in theory, that should work. But the big thing I keep coming back to is that the playoffs are such a different thing than the regular season. Matchups determine everything. To quote Steve Jones Jr., styles make fights. And that is never more true than in the playoffs, where if you just get the right matchup or the wrong matchup, it could fundamentally end or kickstart your season in a meaningful way. And to me, what I keep coming back to is I don't know that we're actually going to know what this team looks like until they get into the crucible of that battle testing, like postseason play. And it's going to be hard to me to get a lot of takeaways outside of that and during this next stretch of the regular season. But yeah, we'll kind of see what's going on there. So speaking of the playoffs, I guess I'm curious, Howard, first off, does Jayson Tatum's return change the Celtics playoff, ceiling, floor, outcome, generally, what have you? And how does this affect specifically like the matchups that they might face? I'm curious.
This one's challenging. It's because we're trying to project out, first like seedings and then first round and second round matchups and, who's everybody guarding. And, the Pistons have taken another huge step forward. So if you're eventually, facing them, how does that play out? The Celtics and Knicks know each other well. And the Knicks, I think because of the Celtics, are really loaded at the wings defensively. I think that was the whole point of the exercise when they added Anunoby and Bridges. So, the Cavs are in there somewhere in all of this, I think. I'm never sure what to think of the Cavs. Of course, he raises. I have to absolutely believe that Tatum, again, pending what we see when he actually gets out there and how much progress he can make over the next 2 months, he raises their floor, he raises their ceiling. I can't imagine it being any other way unless he just gets out there and is like stumbling around and just isn't ready. I sometimes think about back to like Derrick Rose after he blew out his ACL, back in whatever that was, 2011, 12, somewhere, where Derrick Rose was super criticized for being as methodical as he was about coming back. And his whole thing was he didn't want to be back until he was 100% of himself because he felt like that's the only version of himself that he could imagine. And that I think he probably thought fans would want. And so that's the danger here, right? Like if you come back as soon as you can, but you're not actually yourself entirely, there's a psychic aspect of this, a challenge where you're just having to wrestle against your own expectations and expectations of everybody around you. So matchup wise, yeah, like, look, if he's, again, even 85, 90% of himself, he's going to be a handful for any team. It's going to make it that much easier for Jaylen Brown, Derek White, others. And you need somebody to occupy the OG Anunobys and the Mikal Bridges of the world, or the Jalen Tysons or the Asar Thompsons.
Yeah. You made me think of the Gordon Hayward return and how he very clearly was not quite himself for most of that season, if not all of that season. And I think he took a lot of unfair, but still took a lot of flack from Celtics fans because of that. Let's try not to do that if that happens this time around.
Yeah, in terms of specific matchups, like you mentioned or asked Alex, I would still say the Knicks and the Pistons, whether Tatum's healthy or not, are the matchups they don't want. Like, especially the Pistons are such a physical team. You obviously don't want a guy who's coming back from Achilles injury to have to deal with such a physical team. I'd even add in the Magic too, but who knows where they're going to be given their kind of weird seeding. But I feel like that doesn't really change as much because they already don't want to play those teams even if Tatum wasn't coming back. But obviously I think it goes without saying that he'll raise their ceiling, I'm pretty sure.
I'm just going to be really interested to see how these teams cover him in particular. Like, what is their defense going to look like? Because so often in the Eastern Conference playoffs, when Tatum is healthy, it's been 5 alarm fire, sell out to stop Jayson Tatum at all costs, double him, shade, bring help early, like bring help late. The entire defensive architecture of these teams has been geared around stop Jayson Tatum, make Jaylen Brown beat you. And now it's weirdly flipped where you can't cover the Celtics that way. Like, if you are like, let Jaylen Brown beat you, guess what? Jaylen Brown's going to beat you, and it's going to be ugly. So this is a really unique position where Boston is in, where they kind of flipped the traditional script of how to defend them completely on its head. And that's a real credit to Joe Mazzulla and Jaylen and everybody that's been in the Celtics infrastructure this year. I'll be fascinated to watch, particularly like what defensive coverages is Jayson Tatum going to face, and is he in a position to take advantage of those? Because if he's physically 80-90% and feeling confident and is close to what he was before, then it's like, all right, well, you can't really guard Jayson Tatum like that either. So this has been the secret sauce of Boston's playoff success the whole time, is selling out to guard one guy is a very bad idea against the Boston Celtics. And I'll be really interested to see kind of how that manifests this year. So we should also talk about the rotation in general. So first off, a big part of why Boston has been so good this year is they've had this kind of defensive wing demon squad off the bench in Ugo Gonzalez, Baylor Shireman, Jordan Walsh, sprinkle a little Luka Garza in here, sprinkle a little Ron Harper in there. It seems like Boston has really taken advantage of, the rotation shuffle to empower a lot of their young guys, and they've responded in a meaningful way. I mean, we saw it in this last 3-game stretch where all of those guys at various points made significant contributions to 3 straight road wins. That's kind of been the hidden story of Boston's season. But with Jayson Tatum coming back, I mean, that's a guy who you would have to think, even on a minutes restriction, he's probably playing somewhere around 20 to 25 minutes a game at the low end, and potentially more as the playoffs come back. That means somebody's minutes are going to get cut. And so I guess I'm curious, Howard, how is this going to work, given that a big part of why Boston has succeeded this year is because they're playing a bunch of these guys, off the bench, and they're giving them meaningful contributions. How is that going to work, cutting guys' minutes here and there and, kind of shuffling that around?
I mean, this is as much about chemistry again and the psychology of players as it is about scheme, right? But also this is about whether or not Jayson Tatum at 80%, 85, 80, 90, whatever it is, what is he as a defender? Because Jayson Tatum at his best has been a really good defender in this league, and maybe you're not giving up anything. But if he's a step slow, if his lateral movement isn't quite there, this is the balancing act, right? You don't want to abandon this new identity that you've created mixing and matching all the wings that you just mentioned. But somebody's going to have to lose minutes. And I would assume that those guys are all going to be kind of understanding that, the guy who's been like the heart of this team and multiple time All NBA guy, multiple time MVP candidate, I think they'll be fine with that. But you do have to figure out the balance there and gauge, how much he can withstand in the course of a game. And whether it's offensively or defensively, when to yank him in favor of a Luka Garza. Like, that sounds preposterous, but it may come to pass in the stretch of any given game once he's back. But yeah, I hate that I keep going back to until we see him, but like everything is going to be kind of until we see him. And I do think that Jayson Tatum, at whatever percentage he's back, like, fortunately, this is not a guy who it's all just about explode off the dribble, get past your guy. Like, there's other things he can do, right? Like, he's not a great 3-point shooter, but a respectable 3-point shooter. He can play off the ball. He's a very good playmaker and passer. He's a smart player. He's a willing defender. Like, there are going to be some potential physical limitations, but I think he checks enough boxes in terms of being able to contribute to a winning environment that they can find ways to work around him.
And of course, we mentioned it a bunch, but Jaylen Brown obviously has been attached to Jayson Tatum's hit for his entire career, and those guys have won championships together, been through the trenches together. But now Jaylen is a legitimate MVP candidate, and he has been for the whole year as the kind of supernova hub of this team. You gotta wonder how Jayson Tatum's return will impact the season that Jaylen Brown has been having. I think it's probably fair to say that we all believe he's going to continue being the number one option, pretty unquestioned for this version of the team. But even with that in mind, how do you think this is going to affect, Jaylen Brown and what he's been doing this year?
I think this is probably the most important question. And it's not to overemphasize it or to like throw out something like dun dun dun. Like it's not that. I'm not trying to stir things up about Jaylen Brown, Jayson Tatum thing. That theme has probably been overdone over the years. But I've mentioned this before, and I may have even mentioned last time I was on your pod. But like there were rumblings. This is going back like at least 4 years about like Jaylen Brown, might not stay forever in Boston because he'll want his own team. And it was because the word had gotten around. Like there was this everybody had an understanding of who Jaylen Brown was, what his self-belief was, and how he viewed himself. And everybody in this league, like we saw it with, not to bring up I should find a different example, but off the top of my head. But when Kyrie Irving left Cleveland,
yep,
can't remember where he landed. Kyrie Irving.
Neither.
He felt at that time like I can't fully blossom. I can't be the full extent of myself as an NBA player in my prime, and a star in my prime, while existing in LeBron's orbit. I need my own. This happens sometimes. It's okay. I don't always get it. I didn't get it in Kyrie's case, like why you would want to force a trade away from the best player of his generation and possibly the best of all time. You've gone to 3 straight finals, won a champion. Like, why would you want to leave that? But he did. That's his choice. That's his career. Can't remember what happened after that. But when I heard the rumblings about Jaylen Brown several years ago, I thought, well, okay, this is like, I get it. I get the psychology of an athlete, especially a guy with that level of ability, a star who could be a potential superstar, who could be a number one, who doesn't want to have to settle for being, a 1B or a costar or whatever. Now that Jaylen has had it, I am not casting any doubt about whether or not he can readjust or whether he can accommodate Jayson Tatum. But it's a legitimate question. Again, this goes to the psychology of being an elite athlete. How do you balance the individual needs and impulses and your own ego with all the team goals? And, not for nothing, obviously, I got my start in this league covering Shaq and Kobe. So I saw some of the worst versions of this. But they also won 3 straight championships together. And Kobe went on and won 2 more without Shaq. But they had to part ways at a certain point. And this is not that. But it like all of these things have a little bit of common DNA in terms of, how elite athletes view themselves and their role and their expectations and their aspirations in this league. So yeah, I mean, I think, when Tatum comes back, all eyes will first be on how Tatum looks and how he plays. A close second will be how Jaylen Brown works around him or works to involve him. And maybe not even a second, maybe so somewhere hand in hand with that is how Mazzulla manages it, right? Like those are the 3 key figures to keep an eye on in terms of figuring out how to put this thing back together once Tatum is on the court.
So speaking of Mazzulla, this is a great segue. Thank you for the setup there. Nice pass. But, Joe Mazzulla is going to have his hands full. He's had a great season so far. I think we all agree he's, in the running for Coach of the Year at this point, pretty firmly a contender. But he's going to have another curveball to deal with potentially pretty soon. Now, Joe has shown he is a very good coach who can get very creative and adaptable, particularly this season. So I guess I'm curious, first off, what do you expect to change as far as Mazzulla's approach? And also, what are some of the things that he might be, pulling out of his toolbox to help with this reintegration process?
That's a really tough one. He's a different cat, right? This isn't we're in a different era of the NBA where the coaches, it's not the Phil Jackson, Chuck Daly, Pat Riley, larger than life. I'm the boss, and we'll just, I'll, by sheer force of will and personality, I'll get this in order. Head coaches these days, most of them are more like what I would describe as a collaborator, right? You are collaborating with your stars to put them in the best position to succeed. You're not ordering them around. But Mazzulla doesn't strike me either as the type who, like, he doesn't have a particularly soft touch. It's hard to get a sense of because he communicates in such a, what's the best way to say, I don't know, rigid way with the media and the public. I don't know how different that is when he's communicating with his players. So, again, like, tactics, schemes, minutes, rotations, everything else aside, I just think this is really all about how he sets expectations and manages the respective egos of first his two stars, and then the other guys who are getting a lot more opportunity in Tatum's absence. But I don't know. Like, you guys obviously watch, a lot more of the Celtics than I do. Like, what is your confidence level in Mazzulla to kind of, like, figure out this what may be a new formula? I don't have any doubt that he can, but this is a different kind of challenge than anything else he's faced so far.
Yeah, I'd say I'm like fairly confident in his ability to do this. Like you said, he is a collaborator. He's definitely more of a player's coach, I would say. I think behind the scenes, he probably acts a little differently with his own guys than he does with the media. And I think what helps is he's been along for every step of this recovery with Jayson Tatum. He knows how he's been faring. He's been talking to him all the time. We know this. So I think he has a better idea of where he's at. And he's obviously talking to Jaylen Brown too. So that gives me some confidence with that. And then in terms of the rest of the team, I think it'll pretty much be a boon. Like, Derek White hasn't totally been himself without Tatum, and I think he'll benefit from that. Pritchard already took a step back to the bench. Like, that's already an adjustment he went through.
But look how he's doing
exactly.
that.
Yeah, exactly. That's what I'm saying. And I think, like we've all sort of been mentioning, Jaylen Brown, that will be the biggest adjustment. But like we said, they've been doing that their whole career, and I think it's fair to think they'll be able to do it again. And like Alex said, Joe Mazzulla, Coach of the Year candidate, I think he can figure this one out too. And they've had a lot of time to think about it. Like, I'm sure they've been more in the know about whether or not Tatum's coming back than we have.
If there's one thing I could offer as far as a possible way to look at this, I would say to observant Celtics fans, I know he hasn't played very reliably consistent minutes this year, but check out some of the stuff that they've been doing with Jordan Walsh. To me, that feels like a place where Tatum could kind of naturally slide in as that secondary attacker, dirty work guy who can also space to the corners and, crash and just generally kind of be a pick and roll defense menace. They have similar size, and you can kind of see flashes, not consistently, obviously. Jordan Walsh has had a very good season. Is not anywhere close to an all NBA guy. But there are flashes where they kind of take similar approaches. And I think if we have a guide as far as what Mazzulla is going to do with Jayson Tatum when he comes back, I would say just take a look at that Jordan Walsh role and think about what that would look like in a kind of expanded context. So we're going to close things out really quickly here. Just some quick questions. Let's go ceiling and floor and try to keep it to a sentence or so. Ceiling outcome, Jayson Tatum returns. Let's go around the horn. Howard, you're first.
Ceiling outcome for the Celtics as a whole?
Yeah.
Ceiling
and
is the
Jayson
finals.
Tatum. Why not?
Yeah, ceiling is the finals, and Jayson Tatum playing at, I don't know, what a very high level that is probably short of MVP caliber. Like a worst case scenario, he's kind of sluggish and ineffective, and they kind of sag while trying to reintegrate him, and maybe they fall a couple spots in the standings and lose in the first round. On the table, possible.
Yeah,
I don't think it's going to go that way, but possible.
Yeah. JQ, you want to take next crack, ceiling, floor?
Sure, I think I agree with Howard as far as the ceiling goes. As far as the floor goes, I think a second round out could be on the table depending if things don't go great and they get the right or the wrong matchup. If we're being honest,
Daniel?
Yeah, I'd pretty much say what Justin said. I don't really have too much to add to that. I mean, the finals is definitely in play if Tatum's looking more like himself, and I think even if he hasn't been that great, they'll still be able to survive a round or two. But getting past those teams like the Knicks and Pistons, if he's not full strength, will be tough. But the ceiling's still there.
I think the ceiling is they win the title. I mean, that has to be on the table, right? We've seen Brown and Tatum and Missoula and White and Pritchard do that before. Obviously, if you make the finals, by definition, you have a chance to win the finals. And while, the Thunder were heavily favored in last year's matchup and ultimately won, the Pacers took them to the absolute limit before Tyrese Halliburton got injured. So, yeah, I think you have to think that if best case scenario plays out and Jayson Tatum is, the guy that he has been, this team could win the finals outright, which would be an amazing story, but it's definitely...
It would be insane.
It would be truly something, but it's not off the table given how...
Greatest gap year ever.
Yeah, seriously. And of course, the floor is that Jayson Tatum gets re-injured and comes back too soon. Which
don't even go there, damn you.
But that's the floor. I mean, it has to be the floor, right? That's the floor. So we'll have to see. We'll be keeping tabs on it, of course, here at Havlicek Stole the Pod. Howard, thank you so much for joining us. One more quick thing, or two more quick things before I let you go. First off, I know because I've been listening to the Ringer pods that you have talked to death about lottery reform the past month. So has everyone. Do you have any thoughts on cola or Pepsi or Coke or any other related soda or lottery reform matters before we let you go here?
So Justin had sent over the cola proposal, which I thought was really interesting and obnoxiously academic.
No, Justin would never send anything that's obnoxiously academic. That would never happen.
I don't know if my brain will ever get over reading the phrase, and I'm quoting here, employing a truth elicitation mechanism. Holy fuck. I want to send that phrase straight to like semantic hell and have it never surface again. Good Lord. So this is a multi-year kind of fix where, I think if you win the lottery, win the top pick, then your chances are reduced the next year and all this other stuff. I don't know how far you reduced. I didn't get into the weeds about the math of it all. The problem with multi-year solutions is that rosters are not static and players are not static. Younger players develop. Vets even develop new skills in the offseason sometimes. Older players decline. Anyone can get hurt. Players are signed, replaced in an offseason. And the reason I bring that up is if you have a multi-year solution, it presupposes that, a bad team got their crack. They got a good player. Boom, done. We've satisfied the need. The reason that the NBA has stuck to this system in one form or another for so long in the first place is the NBA still believes at the league level, and I think the team level too, that someone's always going to be, it's a bell curve, more or less. Someone's always going to be at the bottom end. And it may not be by design. It may not have been by tanking. It may just mean a string of bad luck or guys retired or whatever. And you need an opportunity to reload with high-end talent. Well, if your chance at the top of the order, at the top of the draft, was the year that it was Reza Shea or Anthony Bennett or any number of others, then it didn't satisfy the need. You got your chance, but just because you drafted number one or maybe two or three doesn't mean like box checked, you're fine, it's good. We'll give it somebody else a shot the next year. So the reason we stuck with this system so long is because of that. The league believes that tanking aside, there is a legitimate need to give bad teams an avenue to top level talent, and this is the way we do it. And I will say too, as Justin knows from our back and forth coming, before the show, like I'm exhausted of all, like everybody and their brother and their brother's dog has a tanking solution, and
mine is the best. But
I like NBA Conclave. That's actually my favorite. But
that was fun. I mean, I just no disrespect to everybody who has proposed all of these different solutions. They're all really interesting and creative. I've seen a lot of them. The league, I guarantee you, has seen even more of them. The catalog of solutions that the league has probably seen and considered internally and externally would put us all to sleep probably, or we'd be buried under them. So I guarantee everybody listening to this pod, they have considered everything. Because every solution falls into one of a few different categories, right? Locking the standings, or points for wins, all these different things. They've heard it all. They've been working on this a very long time. This isn't new. It didn't start yesterday. And I don't know what they're eventually going to come up with, but they're going to do something before next season. It may not satisfy everything. It may be kind of a half measure. But I don't think they're prepared for more revolutionary solutions. I don't think they're not abolishing the draft, folks. They're not probably even abolishing the lottery, for that matter.
They couldn't abolish the draft if they wanted to. I mean, just anything like that where they'd have to get it past the Players Association. It's not happening.
Yeah. No, I think you're right.
I think the Players Association would actually be pro-abolish the draft. They would love for everybody to be a free agent.
Yeah, that's true. I do think you're right that the NBA is not progressive or revolutionary enough to implement my obvious solution that will fix all of this. As for previous listeners will know, it's the eliminated teams individual 21 tournament. It's a genius idea. It's so good. It leads to more basketball. It gives DeMar DeRozan something to do in the offseason. It's great. But nonetheless, I will digress. So as always, thank you for joining us, Howard. We can find you at The Ringer. Where else can we find your work?
TheRinger.com, The Real Ones podcast every Tuesday.
Uh-oh.
Oh, no.
We just lost him.
Oh, he's gone. Oh, my God.
Oh, too.
I guess it's good that we got through the pod.
Yeah.
Howard has left us. But you can find Howard at The Ringer. You can find Howard Beck at Real Ones. And you can also find him at the Brooklyn Paramount very soon with Zach Lowe. Oh, is he coming back? Maybe. Late-breaking Howard Beck off the bench. Oh. No, he's gone. Okay.
Oh.
Well, nonetheless, you can find Howard in all of these places. And we'll close it out per usual, I suppose, with something to remember or something to forget. And maybe Howard will join us again, and maybe he won't. We'll see. But JQ, take us away. What are we doing here?
Well, in my case, I will remember the time I got to ask Greg Popovich a question and how scared I was going to end up being the story for my question. It was about Romeo Langford. He had a very thoughtful answer, and I felt very, very I don't know, I guess safe is the word afterwards. And I just want to say that I'm glad that Joe is Joe Mazzulla. So the whole new generation of reporters get to go through that same kind of thing.
Daniel, something to remember, something to forget.
Yeah, I'll remember my guy Colin Gillespie having a pretty solid showing yesterday, even when the rest of the Suns did not. But more importantly, I'm going to remind everybody of, I think it was Finals Media Day 2024, when Jason Kidd's bold strategy was to say that Jaylen Brown was better than Jayson Tatum. Yeah. And I'm just going to remind everybody that this is not a new issue, the whole ego question, the whole who's number one, blah, blah, blah. They've been dealing with this forever, and we all know what actually did happen in the finals. So just remember that when Tatum does come back, because it's feeling like it could be soon.
I'm going to remember two things. I'm going to remember, first off, how much fun this Celtics team was prior to Jayson Tatum returning. Obviously, I'm very excited for him to come back and looking forward to everything that comes with that. But shout out to this team and for what they've been up until this point. It's been really fun to watch, and I have really, really enjoyed seeing the growth from this team, Jaylen Brown, Joe Mazzulla, and all of them. And I'm going to remember to buy my tickets to see Howard and Zach, the Brooklyn Paramount, if there are any left. Hopefully there are. We'll see. I'll let you know how it went on a future episode of Havlicek Still.